Except where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying? Cecil.
We are getting ridiculous with the pulling down of statues and the pulling down of ideas because we don't like the past. Okay, world, really America. You wanted to get rid of the Confederate statues. I'd never really been a fan of them. But I say, whatever. They want the statues up, fine. But then I said, well, if the public votes to pull the statues down, then fine. So you're going to get rid of the Confederate statues because you say, well, they fought against the United States, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Now, some of you want to go further, and just like President Trump said, now you want to get rid of statues of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, because they own slaves. Don't you think you're creeping into the ridiculous realm now? And in case you're wondering what this has to do with martial arts, I'll talk about the styles, the two of the main styles I've studied, and how they've crept into the ridiculousness. Because the same type of thing has gone on with Taekwondo and Judo, just intellectually, not physically. Especially with Taekwondo. Those of you who don't know, Japan at one point occupied Korea. Similar to how you could say that Black Americans in the United States were occupied and under slavery in Jim Crow and segregation by the rest of the United States, right? So what happens is the people who have been occupied, as soon as they get a chance to get some freedom from the occupier, they want to throw out everything that came from their previous oppressor. Instead of just, okay, we're free now, let's keep some stuff that works for us and then try to go forward and forge our own identity. Sometimes people can go overboard and just want to just start throwing stuff out, throwing away. That's why for Taekwondo, the forms that we use, you can look at the forms and tell that they come from karate. You can tell they come from the Japanese culture. But no, there was this big push to make everything more Korean. So first they just used Japanese forms and may have had Korean names for them. That wasn't good enough. So then they're going to go and say, we're going to make a completely Korean set. And they're going to use the forms that General Choi came up with, the Chang Han series of forms, right? But then from what I was reading, I thought things just kind of naturally evolved just because people have different ideas. But no, General Choi stuff wasn't Korean enough. So we're going to bang it up and change it even more to make the WTF Palgway or Poomsae. And then we're going to change it up even more and make the set of forms that I believe the American Taekwondo Association are using. Now, I'm not against doing anything new. But why? Why did you have to do that? You didn't have to do that. The Japanese forms are fine. And then, see, this is what really gets me, right? This is like the whole let's rip down statues thing that's going on right now in the United States. People will go, if you go as a Korean martial arts practitioner, and if you want to learn how to use your moves, if you go to Japanese sources, you're committing some kind of crime. You're offending people. People may find that offensive. Even though it comes from Japan, which made it come from Okinawa, which came from China, which came from India, which I say comes from Kemet, from Africa. Kemet, Egypt, Africa. And from whatever was predated Egypt, back to God, okay? But people get offended. Somehow the Korean versus Japanese beef gets translated down to the arts. So that you got people going, well, let's not study the Japanese arts because Japan occupied Korea. See, Cecil, and people have had this conversation with me. See, Cecil, you gotta understand. You gotta understand. You don't understand. You don't understand what Japan did, Cecil. You gotta understand. You don't understand. No, I'm just black, and I grew up hearing about segregation because I was born in 1970, and I walked past water fountains that people told me I couldn't use. You know, when I was little, you couldn't even use that. Let that boy drink out that fountain. Let that boy drink out that fountain. He needed to drink out that fountain. They wouldn't let us drink out that fountain. I'm just like, I just want to get water. Didn't know that was a thing. I'm thirsty. Can I get something to drink, sir? But no, I don't understand what that's about, right? Another thing we African Americans will do. Not all of us now, not all of us. What some of us will do, this whole name thing people come up with, why do they have those weird names? It's an attempt to take the name that was given by the oppressor and change it and make it into something that we can uniquely call ours. Like, let's say I want to change my name Cecil, right? To how people may actually pronounce it if I don't want to go try to find an African name. Sometimes people call me Cecil, Cecil, right? Depending on their accent. So I would say, I'll change my name from Cecil to Cecil. So I spell it Ceezul instead of Ccil. Or Seesah, Cecil. Because some people pronounce my name that way. Cecil. Pronounce my name like that. So I could do that in an attempt to break away from the dominant slave culture that was given to me. And, and you think it's silly, right? You think that's silly. So, you see, this is my thing. This is why I know I offend people. I offend people in martial arts a lot with this. Because I'm like, if that's taking pride a little too far, because all of this is pride. All this is going on, the whole statues thing, and then what we do with each other in martial arts when we get style elitists, that's all pride. It's the sin of pride. That's all it is. So that's the biblical standpoint, is your pride. You're too proud. It's all pride, right? So if you say that's ridiculous, they're just doing this out of pride. So if that's ridiculous, then isn't it ridiculous when you decide to make these forms change from the Japanese way to the Korean way, not to improve upon the form, but just to make it more Korean? That's the same thing. You're just doing it intellectually. You're ripping down these statues that ain't hurting anybody anymore. You're ripping down these arrangements of movements that are not hurting anybody anymore. Bruce Lee, I know in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, he had compared the katas, the forms, the routines. He said they're like a dead, stiff, rigid thing. A statue is a dead, stiff, rigid thing. That is basically what? Tradition. Bruce Lee was saying, yes, tear down tradition. That's the first half of that idea that he had. Let's tear down tradition. And everybody's like, yeah, let's go tear down tradition. And we make it up our own styles. But he said, don't get rid of tradition just as a reaction, or you will create another box and you will trap yourself there. That's what he said. You take some stuff, you keep some stuff that's traditional, that's good. You don't just throw it out because it's traditional or you are offended by its tradition. Keep from it what's valuable. Now, I say the old Confederate statues, I ain't like them, but I'm like, keep them up. Why? Because then when you're walking with your child, you walk past a statue. What's that? Oh, and then you give them a history lesson. And then you teach them, while this man did X great, Y that he did was not great, and Y, and therefore Z, in the future, we should do blah, blah, blah. You're never going to have that conversation if you rip down all evidence of it that it ever happened. So I understand people are offended by slavery. Fine. I understand that, okay? But if you erase all evidence of it, you never have the conversations that need to happen because of it. A lot of social ills that exist today, particularly in the Black American community, people say happen because of slavery. You're never going to address those if you're going to pull down every single reminder of it. Now, when you start wanting to go after George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, just because they owned slaves, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater when they were cornerstones to the formation of the United States. Okay? And so were the African American slaves, who were also cornerstones of the United States. So how about we build some slave statues? How about some Harriet Tubman statues? How about some Nat Turner statues? Get those up instead of trying to tear something down. Because when you tear down and erase, you lose knowledge. Just like when you erase the Korean martial arts to Japanese martial arts connection, not that there weren't indigenous Korean arts there, when you erase that connection, you lose knowledge. One of the things that has been lost from between the Korean and Japanese connection is knowledge of pressure points. Knowledge of pressure point applications and different ways that you can use your moves in your forms. Lost because you want to completely destroy the connection to the past instead of saying that was that iteration. So let's make it internet. That was version 1. What we're doing is version 2. Might come up with version 3. But you always still point back to version 1 because version 1 may have some stuff in there that's good. You know? I'll bring it to my day job. Mainframes. Stuff still runs on mainframe computers, whether you know it or not. But we have different interfaces like this phone that I'm speaking on. Laptop computers. Notepads, tablets, Mac, telephone. When you send all this stuff out, somewhere along the line, mainframes still come into the mix. The mainframes are like the Shaolin temple of tech. So it's good to know about it. Once you know that, it'll help you see better where everything branched out from there and fits. See what I'm saying? I know you're mad, you're upset, you're offended. You want to solve these problems. You want to come together. But you don't come together effectively by ripping down everything that came before you. And then you get mad at people who go, I wonder if I look back at what that past culture that influenced us have, I wonder if I can learn anything or pick up a principle that's still useful today, that's going to help me today. No, you won't do that. And I said styles. Styles I've studied. So now I'm going to go to judo. I should put on a judo gi to talk about this, but that's just weird. I'm not going to do it. Did you know that it's possible that Jigoro Kano may have met with Adolf Hitler? He definitely went to Germany during the 1930s, part of the Olympic Games, stuff like that. But it's very possible that Jigoro Kano met with Adolf Hitler. It's also, I'm not making this up. Google it. I'm not making this up. He definitely met with some key people in the Nazi Party, most likely to spread judo. And judo was in Japan during the Nazi era. If you don't know, Dr. Jigoro Kano was the founder, I think you're supposed to say Kano Jigoro actually, is the founder of the martial sport of judo, which comes from jiu-jitsu. Okay? Japanese martial art. So, does that mean that I should not study judo because there may be some Nazi enjoyment of it? Not that Kano believed in a Nazi ideology, but he saw a Nazi a couple times or once or something, may have stood next to some of them in some photos. So therefore, we have to get rid of judo now because Nazis. Now you would think that's stupid, right? Come on. That's the kind of thinking you're doing when you don't want to just stop at Confederate statues. You want to rip down George Washington statues, Thomas Jefferson statues too. But you know what? Hey, I say this. If it's put to a vote and the majority of people say, no, 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 we got to rip them down, we got to take them down, move into a private museum. Because Cecil, you don't understand. You don't understand, Cecil. You don't understand. I use a black voice when I say that, but I hear that. I've heard, Cecil, you don't understand, see, cuz I've heard that from black, white, Asian. I don't think I've heard it from Latino yet, but I'm sure it's coming. And I don't think I've heard it from Native American yet, but I'm sure it's coming. I've actually heard it from India to Pakistan and Pakistan to India. You don't understand because of what they did to us. So because of what they did to us, let's just rip down everything that we may have gotten from them. And this is the argument I made on Facebook, and nobody shot it down. I made this argument, I think it was last year. Everybody likes to talk about, especially in the black intellectual circles, the white man did this and the white man did that, so we're going to reject what the white man did. We're going to come up with our own names and our own celebrations and things, and that's fine and dandy. But I said, you know what? Nobody ever wants to give up that they probably got from the white man. Nobody's ever wanted to give this up. What, Cecil? Nobody's ever wanted to give up the white man's guns. So if the white man's bad, right, let's get rid of the white. How about getting rid of white man's guns? Want to do that? Well, no, I need my gun. Well, yeah, you're not going to give up the white man's guns and go back to using bladed weapons and bows and arrows, right? No, you're not going to do that. And I know, yes, it's the white man actually got it from the ancient Kemetics and got it from the Asians who got it from Kemet. Yeah, I know all that, okay? Please spare me the Afrocentric history lesson. I got it. But just for the sake of argument, you know that the culture known for the gun, that's why I like to say known for. Especially when I'm talking about warfare and martial arts. Like I say, Taekwondo is known for the kicks, even though it has punches and throws. Judo is known for the throws and the pins and the chokes, even though it has striking in it too. You know, even Western boxing is known for punches, even though I've been informed the older pugilistic styles had a front kick and had some hip throws in it. So, and the clinch, when the clinch in the boxing, that's one step removed from judo tachiwaza. Let me stop be technical. Judo standing grappling technique. Okay. So, my point is, stop trying to tear down stuff from the past because you're offended by something that those people did. That's actually more of a reason for you to have what you're trying to get rid of. Because human beings are habitual. And we will repeat those mistakes that are made in the past if we're not constantly reminded not to do that. That's how we are. That's how human beings are. We're going to end up having another civil war and bringing back slavery again if we're not constantly told that's wrong. Would it necessarily be us? No, it might not necessarily be African Americans be enslaved again. We might end up enslaving, I don't know, clones. Might end up enslaving robots. Might end up enslaving chimeras. And you don't think that could happen. We could very well end up enslaving chimeras because of their birth origin. They don't have a soul. They don't feel pain. Same stuff they used to say about my ethnic group. Just like some of you wouldn't believe me if I told you that I'm Native American, even though the first natives are described as having copper-colored skin. And I can't ever find a penny. They're usually always laying around in my closet. Here we go. I'll use this one. This is a copper penny. This is my skin tone. How close do they match? This is a copper penny. This is my skin tone. I bet you if I lean my head up in the light, you can barely see the copper penny. No, Cecil, those were darker skin. AJ, those weren't African people. Tell that to my great-grandmother who said, yeah, I'm scared away, whatever. There are people that you would think of that are primarily African who have long hair and even wavy type hair, and it's not because they're mixed. That's their hair. If you knew enough black people, you would know that they are black people like that. That's how come, if you ever read that Black Indians book, and some people say that's a fraud or bad academic research, but I bet one thing you can't deny is if you would put a headdress on some of those slaves, they could hide out with the local tribes back then, the local Indian nations. And if it wasn't true, then why did people used to, happen every once in a while, people would make fun of me, put a feather on his head, he could dance, ha ha ha. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm black. That's because I didn't know my history. So, because of all that, you know what I'm supposed to do? By the logic of you people who just want to get tear down and destroy. So now I should hate the people, right? I should be mad at the people who actually have true cultural connections to indigenous American stuff. Right? I should be mad at them. I should go to something they have and tear down, what do they call that thing? I should tear down a totem pole because my ancestors are the real, we're the real data. Why? Why? What would that do? What constructive purpose would that serve, really? Probably what I should do if they put up a totem pole, or if I happen to go by a mound, so I should go tear down the mounds because we built them and they won't let us say, and then I'm going to destroy. Walk past with a kid, hey, what's that? Oh, the mound builders built that. Do you know, blah, 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 blah. You can spark a conversation that could be learning and tell them the truth. Some people say that we are, some people say that we're not. That's something that's up for debate. You could end up creating a historian like that. That person could grow up, say, let me, and then more truth gets uncovered. Because really, the more you learn about other cultures and of your own cultures, the more you see that people have the same basic motivations and fears and hopes and dreams and all that good stuff. It just may be manifested differently. Everybody has, parents, siblings, grandparents, cousins, unless they're orphans, and even then they have friends, and everybody gets hungry and breathes and stuff like that. Okay? So this whole let's tear down tradition because we're mad. You got to stop it. Stop this whole destroy tradition. You don't need to destroy tradition. What you need to do is add to. If you want diversity, if you really want diversity, you add, you don't destroy. That's what you do if you really want diversity. If you really want diversity in society, you let people know about more cultures instead of trying to obliterate some of the ones that were prominent before. If you want people to know about different martial arts, you add your expression and variation. If you feel strongly, you've got to take on something. It's like I feel strongly, I got to take on Taekwondo, so I have Cecil Taekwondo. But does that mean I go, General Choi didn't make them do enough throws, so I'm going to just, nah. No. And this video's got long. If you stuck with me this long, I say thank you. But I will say this. I think there are people in the world who just want an excuse to be destructive and just tear something down. And I swear, if it wasn't the statues, it'd be something else. Because even if they get their way and they get rid of all the statues or get rid of all these other martial arts they don't like or whatever, they're going to be unhappy because they're not going to have something negative to focus on. But as long as they do what they do, I can at least make videos about it. Past is not all bad, but it's not all good either. It is what it is. Lest you, especially when you talk about people like Thomas Jefferson, who had slaves, but wrote the Declaration of Independence. George Washington, who had slaves, but was the first president on record. General Choi Hung-hee, who created the beautiful art of Taekwondo, but may have been a little too obsessed about it, and he even annoyed his superiors, and he seems like he was kind of a cast out from Korea. Kano, Dr. Kano Jigoro, created the beautiful art of Judo, but may have let part of it fall into the hands of Nazis. There's nobody perfect but God. And you still got people that are critical of God, don't even believe in his existence. And then people are going to be mad because I said he when I refer to God. Let's build, not destroy. Peace.
Where the kicks at? Where the pains? Where them holes? Where them throws? You know what I'm saying? Cecil Rio Taekwondo. Cecil Rio Taekwondo. Cecil Rio Taekwondo. Cecil Rio Taekwondo.
Go to cecilryu.org, cecilryu.org. Learn Taekwondo, supplemented with cross training in Judo, Kyushu, Jitsu, and Western boxing. It's for all ages and for the whole family.